Right now there's a question that I've been hearing asked so often, and I think it's because there's so much uncertainty in what is going to be happening this fall, and that's what are you going to be doing for school next year? It can feel like none of the choices are that great. I mean, here we are. It still feels like we're smack dab in the middle of a pandemic. What I hear people talking about is, will you be doing digital learning, homeschooling, or sending your kids back to school? If you're new here, if you just stumbled upon this video, my name is Cami. I'm autistic. My husband's autistic. We have 5 kids and at least 4 of them are also autistic. Last year, all of my kids were out of the house every day, almost all day. I drove 100 miles a day getting my kids to the different schools that they went to. I had a middle schooler who went to a mainstream classroom with no help. I had 2 elementary school students who went to, well, one was K-Club, which is like kindergarten before kindergarten, but not preschool. It's in Michigan where you go to kindergarten before kindergarten and then you go to kindergarten again. Kindergarteners who have their birthday before December, September to December kindergarten, basically. I didn't know that when I moved here, so I always explain it. I should have just said young kindergarteners. That would have been better. And then we had a preschooler who was in a split therapy / preschool class all day that was very intensive. She will not be doing that therapy anymore. And Maggie was in therapy all day long, and neither of the girls will be doing that therapy anymore. If you watch my video on ABA, you know why. So we have some big changes coming this year, and those changes would have been coming either way, with or without the pandemic, because of the therapy changes. Because of the pandemic, obviously things are going to be changing in big ways no matter what. I made some videos a while back about school, and it was about how we've done a lot of different types of school. How when we had 2 kids and it was just Sadie and Maggie and they were little, before they were born even, I read every book out there on homeschooling. I mean, I had a bookshelf of homeschooling books about homeschooling theory. I'd read them all, cover to cover, before Sadie was even 2. I'd chosen I was going to do the classical method when she was tiny. I think when she was in kindergarten, I bought $700 of school books for kindergarten. I was over the top. I guess you could say it was one of my special interests. And after 2 years of it, with everything trying to be there for Maggie as Maggie's mom, when we were having all these communication difficulties and we didn't know what autism was. Again, for anyone who's new here, I was diagnosed this past year, and so when Maggie was diagnosed, I really knew nothing about autism, and I had a lot to learn. How to be able to help her and learn how to communicate effectively with her. By the time Sadie was going into 2nd grade, it was really clear that homeschooling wasn't going to work for us, and we tried private school. And that also was a pretty spectacular failure. Finally, we moved on to public school, and we have loved our public school. We live in a rural area in a small town, and it has been a very good fit. Honestly, if you told me last year or the year before that there was a possibility that I would be homeschooling again, I would have laughed at you. And if you told me it was going to be because of the pandemic, I probably would have cried, because that is the only way that this would be happening. We were strongly considering sending our kids back, but it's looking more and more, since we've heard the strong possibility of 5 days a week in the most recent updates coming out of the governor's office, and all the kids back. And the more that comes out, no masks for kids under 5, the more we keep hearing, and we really don't know anything for sure yet, the more it looks like we're going to be homeschooling. Sadie has been watching the news, and she's basically announced that she does not want to go back to school, and she is the most extroverted child that I have in this house. She was adamant that she wanted to go back to school, and that she's done a complete 180 on that. She doesn't want to anymore. So it looks like if distance learning is an option, we will absolutely do that. I would love for us to be able to stay involved with our local school district if that's a possibility, but if it's not, then we will probably try to use one of our local Michigan online learning resources, because I don't want to completely go it alone this time. That is what it's looking like for us. Probably the most painful part of this for us is that we have gotten Maggie hooked in with speech and OT that Tessie used to have, but because she's over 5, that was a possibility, but because Tessie's under 5, the policy through the whole system that they're in was that Tessie lost speech and OT. And if it is 5 days a week, all the kids together, no masks, I'm not going to be taking Tessie up for speech and OT to our school and basically exposing her to everything up there, and that will mean no speech and OT for Tessie. That is really upsetting for me, probably the biggest thing. And she's not getting speech and OT because they would only give her speech and OT through the place that takes our insurance that she's gone previously for the last 2 years, if I would agree to have her in ABA at least 20 hours a week. And I won't do that. And so we lost our speech and OT that she has been in since she was 2 for the last 2 years with her amazing, wonderful speech therapist and OT. And that was hard. I mean, I know a lot and she's had a lot of therapies, but it's still upsetting. I'm still kind of hoping that somehow that there's going to be some really good solution that makes me feel comfortable. But I don't see how it'll work for our family, and that's kind of what I want to get into now. Why I feel that for our family, homeschooling will probably be best. That goes back to, if you've watched our channel for a long time, you might have an idea why. Paul, me, Sadie, Patrick all are asthmatic. I know asthma isn't supposed to make you have a larger chance of complications according to what they say. They haven't found that. I also know that I sat with Sadie in the hospital with a partially collapsed lung when she had a cold, like a tiny cold. Before that, we'd suspected she had asthma, but never enough that the doctors would believe that she had asthma. It was Paul and I would see her wheezing. She always sounded fine at the doctor's office. And this was when she was very, very small. She would wheeze and they always just thought it was something she grew out of, and then she didn't wheeze for like 8 years. So when Sadie was 10, after thinking she probably didn't have asthma, she got mildly sick. We didn't even know she was sick, and she had her first asthma attack. She woke up, she was having a hard time breathing, hard enough that we gave her her dad's inhaler and she started breathing. Then we took her to urgent care where they gave her a nebulizer treatment, did a lung x-ray. They could tell there was slight thickening on the bottom of her lungs. They gave her a prescription for her own inhaler, and we made an appointment first thing Monday morning for her to see her doctor. And at first things seemed fine, but that week things went downhill pretty fast. On Monday we saw her doctor, and in the doctor's appointment she had a major attack, which was kind of a blessing because all of her pulmonary function tests have been normal. Thankfully her doctors have witnessed her have multiple asthma attacks, and so they've seen how bad it can be that she can't breathe when she has them. She used the inhaler at the doctor's office and she felt fine. And we left, and the doctor ordered preventative medications for us. We went to pick them up, and then we went to a restaurant to eat on our way home because we just thought it was asthma. We didn't think she was sick. She hadn't had a fever yet at all. She didn't even have the sniffles. She seemed totally fine. And then she had another asthma attack and another. 2, like 10 minutes apart. The second time the inhaler didn't work. We drove to the ER. They did the triple breathing treatment protocol that they do there, triple nebulizer treatment. And the nurse told me there that she thought there was about a 50% chance that she would be readmitted. And she was. 5 days later with a partially collapsed lung. In the morning, she seemed like she was worse. She had an asthma attack that morning, and I kept her home with me because it was so bad. And we did a nebulizer treatment that morning. They were having us do nebulizer treatments, I can't remember how, spaced out all day. Her sister had an appointment at the children's hospital, so I took her to the children's hospital with us because I was thinking at Michigan University, U of M, because I thought that if it got worse while we were there, I was just going to take her to the ER. Because we have a really good hospital here. It seemed like U of M might be the place to be if things kept getting worse. And while we were at U of M, she was perfect. Nothing went wrong. She felt so good the whole time we were there that I thought maybe this was it. She was getting better. We turned around and came home. Because it was just asthma, I've been emailing back and forth with her teacher all day, and we actually went on a little walk, just probably about 100 yards up and down in front of the school, and we went to a parent-teacher conference. She seemed like she was doing well. Her breathing sounded fine. We went home. We had dinner, and at dinner time she couldn't eat anything. Actually, she had an asthma attack, and we got her nebulizer on, and I called her doctor because I just had this feeling, this bad feeling. And while I was talking to the doctor, and I was talking to her and asking her questions, and I told her doctor that I felt like she wasn't making sense, and our doctor said go to the ER right now. And so we went to the ER, and she was admitted, and she had a partially collapsed lung. I remember standing there while they were doing the chest x-ray, and I could see on the chest x-ray that something was not right. It was just too much cloudy whiteness. I'd seen her chest x-ray earlier in the week, and I'd seen what that looked like, and now I was seeing this one, and it was like, I know that's not what an x-ray of a person's lungs is supposed to look like. I'm not a radiologist, but this is bad. Anyways, so the point is, she's been in school, she probably misses 13 to 20 days from being sick. It's been a lot less now that she has a Prednisone. Her and Patrick both have Prednisone prescriptions from their pulmonologist for when they get sick like that now, and it helps. But they're like me. When they get sick, it takes longer. When they get hand, foot, and mouth, the other kids get better in 3 days. It takes them 10. They just get sick for longer than they should, and they get sick more than the other kids. And that makes me nervous with this, and I don't feel safe, especially with those two, sending them back or having any of the other kids go to school and bringing stuff home to Sadie and Patrick and me. Hopefully this will only be a year, and next year they can all go back to school. It's not ideal, but we're getting used to the new normal. I think this is definitely one of those things where it's a case-by-case basis. Maybe I would think something totally different if I had 5 kids who are all completely healthy with healthy, strong immune systems who are asthmatic. That week when Sadie was in the hospital changed my perspective, or at least gave me a different perspective between Sadie's hospitalization for a virus and my own hospitalization back in 2012 for a virus. I'm definitely for playing things safe. Besides, if we had to stay home every time someone had a cough, we would literally never be sending kids to school anyways, because someone here always has a cough from November to March. I made this whole entire video, and I can't believe I forgot to talk about the teachers. I think it was because I'm so focused on our reasons for not feeling safe that was mostly what I talked about, because usually I'm talking about our point of view. But as a kid who grew up with a mom who was a part-time preschool teacher and a dad who was a high school administrator, who had started as a bus driver and who then was a high school science teacher, who became a vice principal and then a principal and then a high school superintendent. I grew up in a family of educators. And so whatever happens this fall, just know, all of you teachers, our family will be thinking about you. Whatever you decide to do, whether you end up back at work, whether you're able to stay home and you decide to stay home, it seems like such a hard decision, both for parents, for teachers, for everyone. These seem like such impossible choices. I feel like all we can do right now is make the best choice for our families and try to stay safe, especially for all you teachers out there. We will be thinking of you this upcoming year, especially those of you who end up back in the classroom. That is it for today. If you like this video, we'd love it if you give it a thumbs up. And if you're interested in all things autism, we'd love it if you'd hit subscribe. And I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.